Hi, it's Carol Ricard, and welcome back to this episode of I Am Not Cancer. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am super excited to be here with you today. So, in case you missed it, in last week's episode, we actually talked about anxiety and really how our brains kind of come up with anxiety. So that was part one. And you don't need to have seen part one in order to get something from today's, which is part two. Okay. So if you didn't see it, don't panic. If you are someone or you know someone whose life has been, overwhelmed with anxiety and just overwhelm and fear, then guess what? This is the show. All right. And just so you know, everything that I'm going to share with you today is actually available in my new book, which is now available at really all, book retailers. So I Am Not Cancer, and just kind of go to your bookstore and sort of find that. But so last week, what I did was, besides talking about how anxiety comes up in our brains, I also introduced you to what I call the anxiety extinguisher, right? And here it is, right? An extinguisher, so that we can actually put out that anxiety fire when it happens. And that was just breathing in and out as slowly as you possibly can. And that has a physiological effect. Today, though, what I want to share with you is a blueprint and the tools that you can actually use, all right, to just take control of the anxiety once and for all. Remember, we're not going to stop it, but it's kind of like these dominoes where we want to interrupt the dominoes so that they don't continue, all right? So first, I want to talk about why stress management actually fails, all right? And that is because what we've been taught does not work. I used to use all the stress management tools I learned. 20 years ago, that didn't work for me. And the reason why is because it's kind of like this. If you turn your tub on at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you don't come back and turn the tub off until 5 or 6 o'clock that night, you end up having this big old mess. And so it was by accident that I discovered the secret system that I'm going to share with you, called rapid relief therapy. And when you put that together with the blueprint, you basically have everything you need in order to take control. So the blueprint, and I'm going to use my board behind me today, the blueprint is what I call the calm code. All right. And the calm code basically has 4 steps to it. So I'm going to write these on the board. All right. So we have 4 steps of the calm code. And here's the thing. Every step is important to the next. So you can't skip the steps. All right. So we're going to talk about each one of these, all right, as we go through this time together. And the goal is, by the end of this show, you will walk away with a blueprint for how to create calm in your life, because we all have calm inside of us. We just need to unlock it, and some tools you can use to do that. So the first letter of this alphabet is C, which stands for connect. And there are two places that people get lost. One is in the past. If I'd only gone to the doctor sooner, or you know what, if I hadn't not smoked, or if I just been eating healthier, been healthier, or why me? Why did this have to happen to me? It's the family curse coming back to get me. So people get lost in the past with thoughts. People also get lost in the future. And in the future, it can be the what ifs. What if this treatment doesn't work? What if I don't come home from my surgery? What if, this doesn't actually help me, right? What is my family going to do if I'm no longer here? All those things that put us actually in the future. And when we're in one of those two places, the most important place we're missing is in the one place we need to be in order to do anything. And that is the present. And so the goal is to catch yourself and come back into the present. And there are two tools I want to share with you. All right. The first tool, well, actually three. The first tool is what I call a now anchor. And what it literally is that I took a rock, I wrote the word now on it, and I had to use this one as soon as my surgery date was set. I ended up just holding it in my pocket and holding it in my hand. And I would repeat the phrase now. Notice only what is. Notice only what is. And so just like a boat anchor keeps it steady, my little now anchor kept me steady here in the now. Now, if you don't have a stone, there's a couple other things that you can do. All right. One is I took coins for one of my patients. Let me get this in the camera. And I just took 4 quarters, wrapped them in paper, taped it, and then wrote the word now on a little piece of paper. That's one way to do it. The other way, quite simple, is just take a little scrap piece of paper and write the word now on it. And then just fold it up and, keep it on you. All right. When I used to do this with my patients, I would have one woman who didn't have pockets. And so, you know what she used to do? She used to stuck it in her bra. Listen, you got to do what's comfortable to you. All right. So the now anchor is how we can bring ourselves back to the present. The other tool, if you don't have something in your hand, is just to say, feel your feet. And when you say that to yourself, guess where your attention goes? To your feet, which brings you back to the now moment. All right. So those are two tools. The other thing, if you're not coming back to the present moment, how about just come back to today and just live one day at a time? And really, my tool for this that I came up with for my patients was the words live today. And today is the only day afforded you. So just repeating those words, live today, the only day afforded you. All right. So does that make sense? We have to connect in order we have to be present to do these next steps. All right. So that brings me to the next letter, which is A, which stands for aware. And there are basically two things that we need to be aware of. All right. First is, are we in either one of those danger zones? Are we in the past or are we in the future? All right. And then the other aware we have to be is to our brain's signals. Yes, our brain actually sends us signals once it gets triggered. And before it gets to the really bad anxiety, it can actually give us other little signs that that's where we're going. Think of the tub, right? Before it gets higher, because as it grows and grows, the level grows, right? Well, that's what happens to us, right? It gets turned on, and then this level inside of us just grows and grows and grows. And so we get early signs that there's some accumulation. And the brain sends signals, and it sends 3 different kinds of signals. It sends physical signals, which is what your body does. All right. It sends emotional signals, which is what you're feeling. And then it also sends behavioral signals. And that is actually what you're doing. All right. Physical is your body, you can't control it. Feelings, and then what you do. So here are some examples of all of these. Let's start with physical. When you look at physical, they're all things your body is saying. So maybe your muscles start to get a little tense or tight, or maybe you notice, a little bit more pain before you notice the anxiety starts to kick in. So there can be early signs that we're getting that we may not be paying attention to. Then there's the feelings. And truth is, we can begin to feel a little, kind of upset or annoyed or even kind of like, I want to say tense, right? Or frustrated before we get to the feeling anxious and really worried and maybe feeling hopeless. And then lastly is what we do. And maybe we notice that we start to become quiet or withdraw, or maybe you're somebody who food is one of the ways you deal with it in the early way. All right. So hopefully, seeing this slide is actually helpful for you to see the difference and what you need to be looking out for. All right. So that brings us to the next letter, which is actually let out. All right. So we're present so we can be aware of where is our level at. Has the flow been turned on? Do we need to deal with that right now? And is it slowly rising as you go through your day? All right. And the let out is, well, quite honestly, it is the thing that people miss the most. All right. When I'm doing a live workshop, I'll ask, okay, so how many people, if you had a tub that was about to overflow, how many people would just shut the water off? All right. And people will raise their hands. And I say, well, that's only part of the equation, because what we really need to do is shut the water off, but we also need to release it. Right. And that is what I discovered 20 years ago by accident, was that I needed to, at 10 o'clock in the morning, when my stress levels were up to here, right? And I could feel my anxiety kicking in, I needed to stop and then do something to release. And so that is rapid relief therapy. And it's what the Do 60 system is really designed to do. So I want to flip the page and just write this out so we can see this, okay? The first step that we have to take once we figure out the level is rising is we have to stop it. So you want to stop, and then we want to release. Okay. So how do we stop it? Well, using the anxiety extinguisher is one way we can do it. The truth is, it could be anything that is calming that you can do at any moment, anywhere, anytime. All right. That is the power of our RT, or rapid relief therapy. You don't have to wait. You can do it right where you are, and nobody even has to know you're doing it. So, most important thing is, the first step for stopping is something that's very passive and calm. All right. So maybe if you can, it's reading or listening to music, right? Or taking a shower or a bath or aromatherapy. But those are things that we don't always have with us, or have. Can we do that in the middle of a meeting? No. So we need to have things, and I call them the quick three. And the quick three we always have are your breath, because you always have it with you, your mind, so positive self-talk, and serenity prayer. is mine. Maybe it's another prayer for you. And there have been times when I repeated that serenity prayer over and over and over and over in my mind, and just kind of stop that level from rising. Okay. But that's the first step. That's stopping. But then we also have to take the second step, which is to actually release it. And that requires that we do something active, that requires energy and requires muscles, if that makes sense. All right. And so we stop, but then we release. Now, that's where exercise ends up being such a great tool for anxiety and, quite honestly, just for managing stress in general. Because every time you're exercising, you're doing this, you're lowering your levels without even thinking about it, which quite honestly is really cool. And for me, 20 years ago, that was one of my go-to um, tools, right? Is that I would go to the gym after work. But the problem is that once my anxiety got so bad and then my migraines kicked in, there was no way that I could do my exercise. And so therefore, it was kind of like the chicken and the egg, because the exercise being one of my only tools at the time, well, when I was bad, I couldn't do it. So therefore, then I didn't have any tools. So we got to have a full toolbox. And quite honestly, that's what I share with you in my new book, I Am Not Cancer. There is a toolbox. Besides the blueprint, there is a toolbox of other tools, which I unfortunately don't have the time to give you right here at that moment. So what are the quick three that you always have with you that you can always do? Well, they are walk, talk, or write. All right. So let's do walking. If I'm in a meeting, I can get up and I can walk to the bathroom. All right. And once I get in the bathroom, I might need to do a little bit more in case the bathroom's not too far away. Or what I could do in a meeting is I'm sitting still, is just pick my feet up underneath the table and just start moving them. All right. Makes sense. So I'm actually using energy. I'm releasing the energy that my brain has kind of wired in for survival. And I'm kind of just releasing that so that I have plenty room for some more when life throws it at me, right? So I could be walking, talking. All right. Now, if you're in a meeting, you can't do that, but that might lead you to. Now, here's the thing about talking. You don't need to have a person there in order to be listening to you. All right. I have had plenty of conversations, and truthfully, I call this the empty chair method in my book. But you could have a conversation and tell somebody off, right? Or just let it out. That's the most important part. I used to have patients that were at work actually go out to their car at lunch, close up all the windows, and just scream and just let it out that way. And that might work for you too. All right. But the third thing we always have with us is what I call write, or in this case, it's really more like taking a dump. What we want to do is dump some of what's built up inside on a piece of paper. So it requires that we take a piece of paper and a pen. You can't do it with your phone. You can't do it with your computer. All right. It has to be pen or pencil or marker or crayon, something that writes, and a paper. And what you do is you just kind of like start dumping it on the paper. Now, here's the secret. Don't read what you wrote and then destroy it. Because you see, writing does this. But when we read it, we do this. We reload it back in. So you don't want to read what you write. And here's what I've done. One time I was stuck in a meeting and I couldn't get up. I couldn't leave. I was doing my walking, but that wasn't enough. And I was really pissed off because guess what? Anger can come along with anxiety. And so I took my hand and I took my imaginary pen, which was this, and I just started under the table. I started writing on my hand. I am so friggin' pissed off at this place. And I was under the table. Nobody knew what I was doing. And so what I was able to do is just have it come down. Now, just in case you live with somebody, all right, well, this is a true story. So I once worked with a patient who had been homeless. And we got him into some transitional housing, which means you have to share a room with, 3 or 4 other people. And this man, who'd been a professional engineer, never lived with anybody. He'd always lived by himself. And so the stress of being around people, quite honestly, and the anxiety would begin to build up for him. And then it would happen to come out of his mouth. And he was sort of, telling people off. His anger was actually coming out in words. And he was at risk of losing where he was, the placement. And so I said to him, look, instead of having the words come out of your mouth, pick up a piece of paper, write them on the paper, and then destroy it. And he said, I can't do that, Carol. And I said, well, why not? And he said, I'm afraid they're going to read it. And I thought for a minute and I realized, here's a good point. You could live with somebody that if he ripped it up into little pieces, they would try to put the little pieces all back together. So real quick, I had to think. And so I reached on my desk. I had a Sharpie and I pulled it out and I handed him this Sharpie. And I said, here, take this and go in the bathroom. Write your anger, dump it on the toilet paper, and then I want you to flush it. And I promise you 2 things. One, nobody will ever read what it is you wrote. 2, when you start to find yourself feeling angry again, and you will, all right, because this doesn't change the problem. It doesn't make it go away. It changes the power that the problem has over us, okay? So when it comes back to mind and you start thinking about it or feeling that anger, I want you to just picture it going down the toilet. And in this case, you can even think of it with the sound, right? Like, and that is going to interrupt the thought. That is going to interrupt the feeling and it's going to stop it so that it doesn't continue to build back up again to where it was. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, let me just check on time, see how we're doing. Okay, real quick. There's one tool I also want to tell you I used to use in the bathroom at the hospital. All right. It's for the release. All right. And what it is, it's a laughter yoga exercise. So I'm going to ask you to do this with me as long as you are not, all right, driving. All you're going to do is take your hands and extend them to the ceiling going ho, ho, and then hands to the floor like this, all the way, ha, ha. So we're going to go ho, ho, ha, ha. And we start slow and we speed up. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Ho, ho, ha, ha. 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 Ho, ho, ha. Give yourself a round of. All right. Now, here's why this is a secret weapon. A, you got to stop with the ho, ho, ha, ha's because you're breathing out, so you're getting more oxygen in. B, you have the release because of the hand movement and the saying it out loud. So you actually have to say it. You don't have to yell it, but you can go ho, ho, ha, ha, ho, ho, ha, ha. Make sense? So that's the other release. Now, that brings us back to our last one, which is M. And M stands for mind fair. Our mind is this amazing tool. In fact, it is the most powerful tool we have. And what mind stands for is magnificent instrument needing direction. Because here's the thing, if we don't consciously direct where our mind goes, it's usually going to take us where we don't want to go. And really, we're going to find ourselves lost in the danger zones, right? Either in the past or in the future. And what we really need to do is harness the power of our mind right here, right now. So, want to share with you really a little bit of research project and let you see how powerful our mind is. So, Dr. Alicia Crum is a Stanford researcher and who does a lot of research around the mind and mindset. And so she did this experiment, and what was a study, right? She took a group of people and had a milkshake and gave this group of people this milkshake that was really high calorie, high fat, just delicious, kind of like just a kind of milkshake I would love to, drink, except for, of course, all the calories that go along with it, right? And then she took this other group and gave them a milkshake, but this was the low calorie, the good for you, healthy milkshake, and then what she did is she just measured, physiological changes in their body. And what she discovered was there was a difference between the two groups. The group that actually had the low calorie kind of healthy, good for you kind of milkshake, one, they reported feeling hungrier after drinking it. And two, physiologically, they produced more of the hunger hormone called ghrelin or ghrelin, whatever you say it. Now, here's the thing. They both had the exact same milkshake. All that was different about them was their thinking about what it was that they were drinking. The mind has the power to change our body, believe it or not, all right, in ways. And so, as I like to say, it has the power to help us or it has the power to hurt us. The question is, what are you using it for? And more importantly, we can't stop negative thoughts. So I want you to imagine your brain is like a TV and you are watching this show. And the show is marvelous up top here. But all of a sudden, across the bottom, there goes this scroll. And it's saying, attention, breaking news. You get to focus your attention wherever it is you want to. And here's my point. Our brain is the big pictures, the negative in our brain. Our brain is wired to go to the negative. We have to train our brain to go to the positive, that little part down on the bottom. And one of the ways we do this is doing mind push-ups so that we are actually strengthening our attention muscle. All right. We go to the gym to strengthen other muscles. We have to go and do our mind push-ups to strengthen our attention muscle. So here's how you do that. 1 minute, I want you to just sit quietly and focus on your breathing in and your breathing out. As you breathe in, I want you to think my mind is calm. As you breathe out, I want you to think my body's relaxed. And we are actually just going to do this for 30 seconds. I'll start and then you take over. You ready? 1, 2, 3. In, my mind is calm. Out, my body's relaxed. In, my mind is calm. Out, my body's relaxed. In, my mind is calm. Out, my body's relaxed. Okay, what'd you notice? For some of you, that might have been calming, but if you go a minute and if you do 1 minute every day, I promise that that is actually going to help you shift and strengthen your attention muscle so that when you catch yourself falling into the negative, you can redirect it over to the path, to the positive. All right. So we got to wrap it up here. Calm, connect, aware, actually let out, and our mind fair. I want to invite you to join me back next week as we have another great show. I'll catch you on the next episode.